As I've been listening to many of the environmental presentations, something just didn't sit right with me. I was confused. I didn't get it. And really, what I realized is we should be talking about how we need more good, not just less bad, especially here at ECU in the Pirate Nation. A lot of these ideas were crystallized as I read Will McDonough and Michael Braungardt's book, Upcycle, when they talked about how we have to create something positive, not just something non-negative. Their books, Cradle to Cradle, first one was about how we remake things. It was about how to make things not cradle to grave, but cradle to what's going to be next. I always ask what's next. How can this be made not as good a product, but actually a better product next time? And then the new book, Upcycle, Beyond Sustainability, Designing for Abundance, is really about how we're going to create things that make the world even better, not just a little worse each time we do things. Right now, when you think about what we're talking about, where's our focus? Our focus has been here. Problems. We have all these different committees that are focused on different things, from safety, conservation, waste, recycle, reuse, renew, construction, climate mitigation, building performances, and it's how can we get rid of these problems? You know what? It's a little overwhelming. It leads us to be scared, frustrated, concerned, and that's not going to lead to the best performance. We need to be in the right state of mind to be able to perform well. Right now we're already overloaded, right? We're thinking about too many things, and it's created this somewhat of a freak-out mode. And we don't perform well when we're in crisis. We perform well when we have the capacity to think, involve, and create something new and better. Now, we've had this problem focus, but the problem focus, is, I would agree, simpler, because we identify a problem, fix it, and suppose the world's better. But is it? Realize even back in the day when we had the problem of alcohol, we created prohibition. But of course, that didn't eliminate alcohol. It actually made more problems. It also created organized crime. So problem focus actually generally doesn't even fix the problem, plus it leads to more problems. So we might have to think a little bit different. We have to think, how can we move past problems? Right now we're in a status quo. We're at what I would call zero in a sustainable world, which is our expectation. We assume tomorrow will be like today, and we'll be able to sustain our only planet we've been given to live on. We get that, and then there's a problem, what I'll call -3. We see pollution, and we say, we got to solve that problem. How could we fix it? It might be emissions, could be waste, could be garbage, whatever it is. Think, let's fix this. So we fix it, and we think, well, good. We're back to that expectation. And we relax a little bit. But the question is, are we back to that status quo? Are we sustainable? Are we better now? Well, kind of. Actually, what we are is not worse. Now, not worse is fine if humans are bad. If we're inherently bad people, then sure, not creating bad is good. But, Zen Zero is a good goal. But I think we're better than that. Zero also means we have to accept the way things are. And I don't think anybody that's listening to this or concerned really is willing to do that. We want things to be better. Why can't we create better? Right now we're working from this deficit theory, that we have to remove these deficits or create non-negatives, which is the benefit of prevention. Because if prevention works, nothing bad happens. Doesn't mean good happens, but nothing bad happens. Which is really the idea of reduce, reuse, and recycle. That's to keep things as they are, not necessarily to make them better. It reminds me of the story of Febreze that I read about in The Power of Habits by Dewey. They created this supposedly new product because the chemist came home one day and his wife said, "Oh, you quit smoking." Well, he said no. But what had happened is he created a chemical that actually changed the molecular structure of smells and eliminated smells. But when they went to sell this product, it never really sold. Smelly houses got used to the smell, and good smelling houses used it as a finishing touch. But it wasn't creating anything. It was creating the non-existence of something bad, not something good. Now, of course, Febreze leaves a better smell for having used it, so it's better. So what we desire is not only a better smell, but we desire improvement. An improvement is what I would call a +3, a positive gain that we can achieve. So we can be thriving, flourishing, and achieving, doing better than we would have done otherwise. What Baumgarten and McDonough talk about is upcycling, making things better next time around than they were this time around. It's really creating a better world. It's similar to what Steve Jobs did with Apple, the late Steve Jobs. He didn't go there and say, let's fix the problems with Apple in 1997. He said, let's make insanely great products. And of course, we all know what's happened with Apple. They've become one of the biggest companies in the world because they've done what nobody thought was possible. They focused on growth and gain, not on deficits. How can we be better than ever before? Problem solving is just not enough. Our current conversation really has been about what we're against instead of what are we for. I liken this to Mother Teresa. They once asked her if she'd be in a march against the war. And she said, no. I said, what do you mean? You're not against the war? She said, oh, yes. But what you're against is disempowering. What you're for is empowering. I'm for peace. I'm for compassion. I'm for a better life. So we have to think about, what are we for? Wait, what am I talking about here? What I'm suggesting is prevention can't work, and problems are irrelevant, at least as far as improvement is concerned. If we really want to make things better, we have to think beyond problems. Because if we think about problems, the best we're going to be is non-problematic. We need to be better, so we have to think differently. So how are we going to create this good? Well, first we have to clarify what we're for. What are we going to create? We need to think about some transformative examples on how to make this happen. Some examples include the idea of the huge change that happened in business associated with quality management. What they were for is instead of problems and waste and costs, they were for quality, and realized this led to not only better products than ever before, it also meant lower costs, higher employee morale, and so much more. In health, where I work, most people focus on pathogenesis, or the origins of disease, assuming if disease is gone, health happens. Well, it doesn't. We have to create health. So salutogenesis is for health. It's about the origins and creation of physical, mental, and social well-being. Interface is a wonderful example of sustainability, and they're a carpet company. Interface, read by the late Leigh Anderson, it's a business based on petroleum, which is the way carpet's made. You can read about them in Business Lessons for Radical Industrialists or The Mid-Course Correction, which are just wonderful books about how they decide to move forward to a better tomorrow and how they create more good, not just less bad. Ray Anderson said, I stood indicted as a plunderer, a destroyer of the earth, a thief of my grandchildren's future. And I thought, my God, someday what I do here will be illegal. Someday they will send people like me to jail. But he wasn't going to quit doing business. He said, I don't mean to quit doing business. I won't give up a single order, not one bit of market share. But I'm convinced that being a good steward of the earth can be good business too. Now, at this time, he didn't know how he would do it. Because everybody was telling him, you have to choose. Either do well for your business or do good for the environment. Ray rejected that. He chose and. He said, we can do well for the business and do good for the environment. He said, really, we're looking at a false choice. It's not an either or. We just have to do things, of course, according to what we know right now, yeah, that is a choice. But we can do better. We can create a better tomorrow. And what happened? Well, sales went up 67%. They doubled their earnings. The profit margins expanded, and costs went lower. And they continued to lower as they learned how to work with the nature instead of against or using brute force to make carpet, but instead figuring how can we work within the cycle of life. And then all of us know about Google, which is great. And a lot of us have heard about the don't be evil. But Sergey Brin, one of their founders, said, it's not enough to not do evil. We must do good. What are they for? What they're for is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful, therefore making our lives better, and so how we can improve it. They're for a better world. So what methods are we going to use? How are we going to get better? Well, we're going to get better is have an improved an aim of to improve. How? Well, I had suggested being selfish. I said, I want the world to be, I want to live in a better place, which is good for me. But then I looked at the comics and Charlie Brown told me, when he said, would it be wonderful if there were no hatred? Wouldn't it be wonderful if there were no hatred in the whole world? Why does this interest you, Charlie Brown? Then nobody would hate me. I thought, well, wait a minute. That doesn't make the world a better place. It just means they're not hating Charlie Brown. And I looked at the definition of selfish, which was lacking consideration for others. And I realized that wasn't enough. I really want others to do better so we can have a better world. So how are we going to create a better world? Well, really, we had to enable people to achieve their potential. Then maybe what I am is selfless. So I looked at the definition of selfish and it said concerned more with the needs and wishes of others than with one's own. Or being unselfish. Well, that wasn't right. Because I knew I wanted a better world. And then I heard this.
But my first question for you is why help other people? What's in it for you?
I want to leave my daughter and the grandchildren I hope to have, and all these young people a better world. And I think the reason you should do things for other people at bottom is selfish. There's no real difference between selfish and selfless if you understand how the world works. We're all tied together.
There's no difference between selfish and selfless?
No. Not if you understand how the world works. We live in an independent world. Suppose you're in America and you're worried about growth in the American economy. Mm-hmm. So we're 4% of the world's population. We got about 20% of its income. We got to sell something to somebody else. The more you reduce poverty overseas, the more you increase education, improve healthcare, empower women and girls, the more you will have growth overseas, the more there will be global growth, the better off Americans will be. If every time you cut off somebody else's opportunities, you shrink your own horizons.
I love it. So selfish and selfless are really the same thing. So that, well, maybe then it's synergy. And I looked at the definition of synergy, which was the outcome that produces a greater effect than the sum of separate parts. But then, wait, separate parts? Well, separate parts, there's nothing separate. There are no separate parts. Everything's connected. So that wasn't really right. And I know whenever we do something, we create an interaction. And all our acts, of course, are interactions. And Einstein said, I remind myself that my inner and outer life are based on the labor of others, and that only a life lived for others is one that's truly worthwhile. Emerson said, it's one of the most beautiful compensations of life that no man can sincerely try to help another without helping himself. So it's really about selfish. I mean, help others, you're helping yourself. And I know my life depends on how others do. The better others do, the more potential I have for a great life. So I needed a word to describe selfish, selfless synergy. I wasn't sure what it was, so I thought maybe selfurgy? But then I thought, well, that's not enough because that's really thinking about individuals. I want organizations to think this way. How can they not only be profitable, make the world a better place, and also, how can they do good things and be good? So what about this? But then somebody says, that's not going to work. Some people may misinterpret that. Even though it may create warm feelings, it just may be misinterpreted. So I talked to a linguist, Steve Cerruti, and he told me what I'm thinking about is this. Paneugenesis, which is literally creating all good. Creating all good is actions by individuals, groups, organizations that create the best outcome for all parties with the byproduct of pervasive, reciprocal, positive benefits. It's a lot of words. So if you look at Dagwood and Blondie, I think they're epitomizing this. I mean, she wants him to move stuff downstairs, or she'll do it herself and delay making dinner. She said, honey, do you think you could help me move a few things downstairs, or should I do it myself and postpone making your favorite dinner? Well, of course, he moves it downstairs, and then she's able to make dinner, and then she does something for him, he does something for her, they both feel good. And you think about what this means, is that when they have dinner, they're going to feel good about each other. They're going to have a friendly conversation. The kids will see that they have care and love for each other. And we know from research that interactions depend on the emotional state going into the interaction. Had this not happened, and it would have been a tense dinner, this could have led to negative interactions afterwards. The kids kicking the dogs, and who knows what would happen. But we want to create positive interactions. So really, paneugenesis is really about creating interactions so everyone and everything benefits, both in the short and the long term. It's really about better relationships, not just with each other, but with the earth, with organizations, with whatever we can, which is also Deming Systems Appreciation if you're interested in learning about what Deming had talked about in his profound knowledge. So there's really a 4-step process to make this happen, to create more good. First, we have to operationalize an idealized outcome. We've got to imagine what could be that +3 that I was talking about. Then we have to figure out what are the systematic precursors that could lead to that idealized outcome. And then we, of course, have to figure out how do we make this process work in a way that creates the outcome we desire. And we'll know it's working by plotting progress. We can't start with a metric or a number that we don't want to reach. We have to start with what do we want to create. So this is really about how we can do progress. How we can do progress is imagine a better ECU. If you're not at ECU at your organization, how can your organization do even better and contribute to making the world a better place? When you start, first thing you need to do is think, what could be? What could be greater than anything ever done before? When you do this, you have to think with values, not with metrics. You have to think, what's this possible? As soon as you use metrics, you lose values. So you have to use systems thinking, how is everything connected? Think about creating comprehensive benefits that create interactions so everyone and everything benefits. This is how we're going to create more good, not just less bad in the pirate nation. Thank you.